In our previous video, we looked at a different multiple regression model. However, both y and x variable are quantitative variable. As we know, if we want to build a real research model, we really want to include some categorical variable or qualitative variable. So how can we include it? So again, I want to emphasize the y variable, the dependent variable in this class, always be the quantitative variable. So you cannot use categorical or qualitative variable to as your dependent variable. However, we can include the categorical variable as our independent variable. So in this video, we will learn how can we effectively and efficiently to include our categorical variable into your multiple regression model. In many situations, we must work with the categorical independent variable, such as the gender. I think many of your projects will include this variable called the gender. So the gender is not a quantitative variable because you cannot use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to measure the gender, but we just know the categories for the gender. We have male and female. And also, some people will considering about what will affect the groceries revenue. Then they will include one variable called the method of payment into the model. So the method of payment obviously it is also a categorical variable. So how can we include them into our multiple regression model? So for instance, if xi might present gender where x2 equal to 0 indicate male and x2 equal to 1 indicate female. So this is a very smart way to measure the categorical variable because we adopt the computer coding idea to code our categorical variable into our model. So if 1 is female and 0 must be the male, right? So if in this case, we will call this variable x2 as dummy variable. Some textbook also will call it indicator variable. So let's look at an example. Programmer salary survey as an extension of the program involving the computer programmer salary survey. Suppose that the manager also believe that the annual salary is related to whether the individual has a graduate degree in computer science or information system, the years of experience, the score on the programmer aptitude test, whether the individual has a relevant graduate degree, and the annual salary for each of the sampled 20 programmers are shown in next slides. So we totally have 20 observations. So the first part, the right part, have 10 observations, and the left part has another 10 observations. So obviously we have totally one dependent variable, which is first column. The y variable is last column. The salaries is the measurement units $1,000, and we have 2x, the experience, so measured by the years, how many years they are working in this industry, and the test score because they have the computer aptitude test score, and the last variable is degree. So everything are numbers except the third column, the degree. So the degree is a graduate degree. So if the people who take the survey saying yes, which means they have the graduate degree. If they say no, they don't have the graduate degree. So if we want to use Excel to do the analysis, and if you directly just select the y variable and x variable, they will report error. Why? Because the degree here is not number, they are letters. So how can we convert the degree to our numbers? So we will use idea the dummy variable, or we call it the indicator variable. So we define y hat is the annual salary, which is our dependent variable, and we have x1 the years of experience, x2 is score on program aptitude tests. So the last one is our categorical variable, having or not having graduate degree. So if x3 equal to 0, and we will know the people doesn't have graduate degree. If x3 equal to 1 means the individual have graduate degree, then we'll go back to look at our table. So for the degree column, the third column, if you say no and you feeling 0, if you say yes, you feeling 1. So here will be 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0. Now everything can be converted to numbers, and we will use Excel to get the final answer. So here is the Excel output. So this is part of Excel output, the third column, estimated regression equation. So the constant or intercept, we got the coefficient for intercept in 7.945, and the x1 is, the beta 1 is 1.148, beta 2 is 0.197, and beta 3 is 2.280. And by looking at the p-value, we will know the last category, the graduate degree, is not significant different from 0. Although it's not significant different from 0, I want you to spend some time on interpreting 2.280. So how can we interpret 2.280? Before we know how to interpret the partial coefficient ahead of the quantitative variable, for instance, 1.148. So this number means if the people working in this industry 1 more year, his salary will increase $1.148,000. However, how can we interpret 2.280? Can we say if the person increased 1 degree and he will have $2.28,000 more? Obviously, that's not right. So how can we interpret 2.280? So instead of considering increase 1 unit, and what usually people do is people will try to compare two categories. So you will write down compare with employee who doesn't not have a graduate degree. The employee with graduate degree will earn $2.280,000 more. Keep the rest of variable as constant. So the interpretation is compare with the employee who does not have graduate degree. The employee with graduate degree will earn $2.280,000 more. Keep the rest of variables as constant. So which means instead of looking at the increase 1 unit, we compare two categories, the with and without degrees. So how can you know you compare with what? Which category? Actually, the category labeled as 0 is the category you should compare. So compare with the employee who does not have graduate degree. If you look at how I define the 0, 0 is individual does not have a graduate degree. So you compare individual have graduate degree with the individual does not have graduate degree, and the salary will be $2.280,000 more. So that is the categorical variable, which only have 2 categories. However, most of the time when facing categorical variable has more than 2 categories, such as class standing, we have freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. So we have 4 categories. How can we create our dummy variable and the indicator variable. Here I want to emphasize both the dummy variable or indicator variable can only be two values, 0 or 1. So if we have more than two categories, so how can we use 0 and 1 to code those categorical categories? So here is the concept. If a categorical variable has k levels, k-1 dummy variable are required, with each dummy variable being coded as 0 or 1. For example, a variable with level a, b, and c could be presented by x1, x2 value of 0, 0, and a is 1, 0 for b, and then 0, 1 for c. So when we do the interpretation, we need to pay more attention on the interpretation. So here is an example. For example, a variable indicating level of the education could be represented by x1 and x2 value as follows. So we have bachelor degree, master degree, and PhD. So we have three levels: bachelor, master, and PhD. However, we only need to create two more dummy variables, x1 and x2. So when we have the observation has a bachelor degree, both x equal to 0, 0, 0. And if we have student, one individual has a master degree, given the value for x is 1, given the value for x2 is 0. If the person has a PhD degree, and we'll give the x1 equal to 0 and x2 equal to 1. So which means if you see an individual has x1, x2 equal to 0, 0, and you will know the people is a bachelor degree. If you see an individual have x1 equal to 1, x2 equal to 0, then you will know the individual is a master's degree. If you see individual has the x1 equal to 0, x2 equal to 1, then you must know he's a PhD. So again, here we want to emphasize the level for the categorical is very important. So in order to decide how many dummy variables you need to include in order to describe one variables, and you need to look at how many levels for that categorical variables. If they have k levels, and we will add k-1x into our model. So in our next video, we will introduce how can we use Excel to get the regression analysis for categorical variable.